In a quiet suburban neighborhood, where tree-lined streets wound lazily through rows of neatly kept homes, lived Alex Carter. Alex wasn't flashy or loud. They were the kind of person who preferred peace over drama, someone who enjoyed sipping their morning coffee on the porch while listening to birds chirp in the distance. Their home sat at the edge of the development, surrounded by acres of lush greenery and dense woods that gave it a secluded charm. It was the perfect place for someone like Alex, who valued privacy above all else. But life has a way of turning calm into chaos when you least expect it. One sunny afternoon, as Alex watered the flower beds out front, they noticed something unusual: a group of men in bright orange vests walking along the edge of their property. At first, Alex thought nothing of it. Maybe they were utility workers checking lines or surveyors mapping out the area for some unrelated project. But curiosity got the better of them, so Alex wandered over to ask what was going on. The men explained they were marking land for a new road being built by the Homeowners Association, HOA, or road, through Alex's property. That didn't sound right. Confused but not yet alarmed, Alex decided to look into it further. They attended the next HOA meeting, hoping to get answers. What they found there left them stunned. Apparently, the HOA had been planning this road for months without consulting anyone directly affected by it. The proposed route would cut straight through Alex's backyard, slicing through trees they'd watched grow for years and ruining large portions of their once pristine land. When Alex voiced their concerns during the meeting, they were met with dismissive shrugs. "It's for the greater good," one board member said, barely glancing up from his notes. Another added, "Don't worry, we'll compensate you." Compensation. Alex couldn't believe what they were hearing. How could money possibly make up for losing part of their home, the place they'd worked so hard to build and maintain? Determined to fight back, Alex hired a lawyer to review the situation. After digging through old documents, the lawyer revealed a bitter truth. Decades ago, when the neighborhood was first developed, vague language in the HOA agreement mentioned potential easement rights. Essentially, the HOA claimed they had legal permission to use parts of private properties if needed for community projects. Alex felt blindsided. No one had ever mentioned these easement rights before, not when they bought the house, not during any previous HOA meetings. Now, because of fine print buried deep in dusty paperwork, their cherished sanctuary was about to be invaded. Bulldozers began arriving within weeks, tearing down trees and flattening the ground. Each crunch of machinery gnawed at Alex's sense of justice. Neighbors offered sympathetic smiles, but little else. Most seemed more concerned with how quickly the road would improve their commutes than with the damage it caused. As the days passed, Alex grew angrier and more determined. They weren't going to let this slide. If the HOA thought they could steamroll over Alex's rights, they were wrong. Sitting alone in their kitchen one night, staring at the mess outside their window, Alex started thinking, what if there was a way to take control of the situation? What if, instead of letting the HOA ruin their life, they could turn this disaster into something profitable? Little did anyone know, Alex was about to pull off the most audacious move the neighborhood had ever seen. The morning after Alex's late-night brainstorming session, they woke up with a strange sense of purpose. For the first time since this nightmare began, they felt like they had a plan. A risky one, sure, but a plan nonetheless. As sunlight filtered through the blinds, Alex stepped outside onto their porch and stared at the freshly paved road slicing through their property. It was wide, smooth, and eerily quiet, as if mocking them for what had been taken away. But instead of feeling defeated, Alex saw opportunity. Over the next few days, Alex threw themselves into research. They spent hours online reading about property rights, zoning laws, and toll roads. At first, it all seemed overwhelming. Legal jargon filled with terms they barely understood. But slowly, pieces started coming together. One article stood out. It detailed how private landowners in other parts of the country had successfully charged fees for using portions of their property when public entities encroached on their land. The idea wasn't just theoretical. It had worked before. And if it could work elsewhere, why not here? With renewed determination, Alex visited a local hardware store to buy supplies. They also reached out to companies specializing in prefabricated toll booths, explaining their situation and asking for quotes. To their surprise, setting up a basic automated toll system wouldn't cost as much as they'd feared. Using savings earmarked for home repairs, Alex placed an order for 2 compact toll booths equipped with electronic payment systems. Drivers would simply tap their credit cards or scan QR codes to pay the fee. Simple, efficient, and impossible to ignore. While waiting for the equipment to arrive, Alex prepared the site. They borrowed orange cones from a friend who worked in construction and placed them strategically at both ends of the road, blocking access until the toll system was ready. A hand-painted sign went up too, announcing, *PVAT road ahead. Tollway. Neighbors driving by did double takes, craning their necks to read the bold letters. Some laughed, thinking it was a prank. Others muttered under their breath, clearly annoyed. No one believed Alex would actually go through with it. Then came the moment of truth. Late one evening, under the cover of darkness, Alex installed the toll booths. By sunrise, the transformation was complete. Where there had once been open asphalt now stood barriers demanding payment. Drivers approaching from either direction were met with clear instructions. Pay $5 to pass or turn around. Word spread quickly. Within hours, cars lined up on both sides of the road, horns blaring as frustrated commuters realized they couldn't simply breeze through anymore. Alex watched from their porch, sipping coffee and observing the chaos unfold. Some drivers got out of their vehicles to inspect the toll booths, shaking their heads in disbelief. Others took pictures to share on social media, tagging local news outlets and fueling speculation about what exactly was happening. The HOA board members, who lived farther away and hadn't been directly impacted yet, remained oblivious, at least for now. But Alex knew this was only the beginning. While some neighbors grumbled about inconvenience, others secretly admired the boldness of the move. After all, hadn't the HOA done something similar by forcing a road through Alex's land without permission? If anything, Alex's tollway felt like poetic justice. Still, Alex understood that retaliation wouldn't be enough. This wasn't just about teaching the HOA a lesson. It was about reclaiming control over their own property, and maybe even making a statement about fairness along the way. As the day wore on, Alex couldn't help but smile. Sure, things were bound to get messy. There would be complaints, arguments, and possibly even legal threats. But for the first time in weeks, Alex felt empowered. The HOA had underestimated them, and soon, everyone would see just how far Alex was willing to go to protect what was theirs. The toll booths became the talk of the neighborhood almost overnight. At first, many residents dismissed Alex's actions as a joke, a dramatic stunt meant to grab attention or vent frustration. But as days turned into weeks, it became clear that Alex was dead serious. Cars lined up on either side of the road, drivers fuming as they realized they couldn't simply bypass the tolls. Some tried sneaking through when they thought no one was watching, only to find themselves blocked by locked gates Alex had installed overnight. Others attempted to drive around the barriers, but the dense woods and uneven terrain made it nearly impossible without risking damage to their vehicles. Alex, meanwhile, remained calm and collected. They knew this wasn't just about revenge. It was about sending a message. Every dollar collected at the toll booth felt like a small victory, a way of reclaiming what had been taken from them. To ensure transparency, Alex posted a sign near the toll explaining why the fees were necessary. Asterisk, this road was built illegally on private property. Proceeds will go toward legal costs and restoring damaged land. Asterisk, for those who still doubted Alex's intentions, receipts were available upon request, showing exactly where the money was going. Word of the tollway spread far beyond the neighborhood. Local news stations sent reporters to interview Alex, eager to cover the unusual story. One evening, a camera crew set up outside Alex's house, capturing footage of frustrated commuters honking their horns and shouting complaints. When asked about their decision, Alex stood confidently in front of the cameras, dressed casually but speaking with conviction. "This isn't about being difficult," Alex explained. "It's about fairness. The HOA came onto my property without permission, destroyed trees I've cared for years, and disrupted my life, all because it was convenient for them. If they want to use my land, they can pay for it. That's how things work in the real world." The interview aired that night, sparking heated debates across the community. Social media lit up with opinions, hashtags like #JusticeForAlex and #TollgateHero trending locally. Supporters praised Alex's ingenuity, calling it a clever way to hold the HOA accountable. Critics, however, accused Alex of greed, arguing that blocking access to a public road, no matter whose land it crossed, was selfish and disruptive. Business owners complained about lost customers, while parents griped about longer school drop-off times. Despite the backlash, Alex refused to back down. They even added a small kiosk next to one of the toll booths, selling snacks and drinks to stranded drivers. It wasn't much, but it helped soften the blow for some and generated extra income for Alex. The kiosk quickly became a quirky landmark, with people jokingly referring to it as Alex's convenience store. A few neighbors, initially opposed to the tolls, started stopping by out of curiosity, and left impressed by Alex's resourcefulness. Behind the scenes, though, Alex knew this situation couldn't last forever. They anticipated pushback from the HOA and possibly even lawsuits, but instead of worrying, Alex focused on making the most of the moment. They documented everything meticulously, keeping records of every transaction, every interaction with angry drivers, and every attempt by authorities to intervene. This wasn't just a personal battle anymore. It was a test of principle, a chance to prove that standing up for yourself could lead to change, even if that change came with challenges. As weeks passed, the tollway transformed from a source of irritation into something else entirely. A symbol. To supporters, it represented resistance against unfair practices. To critics, it embodied stubbornness and disruption. But to Alex, it was proof that sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands to make your voice heard. And judging by the growing pile of cash in their safe, they weren't the only ones willing to pay for justice, or at least convenience. The tollway quickly became more than just a local curiosity. It turned into a battleground of opinions, emotions, and egos. What started as a bold statement from Alex soon spiraled into chaos, dividing the neighborhood like nothing had before. Drivers who relied on the shortcut to avoid congested main roads found themselves stuck in long lines or forced to take detours that added precious minutes to their commutes. Tempers flared, horns blared, and colorful language filled the air as people vented their frustrations. Some residents tried reasoning with Alex, showing up at their doorstep to plead their case. "We're not the ones who built the road," one neighbor argued, his face red with irritation. "Why should we have to pay for something the HOA did?" Alex listened patiently but stood firm. "If you don't want to pay me, take it up with the HOA," they replied calmly. "They're the ones who decided my property was theirs to use." Others weren't so diplomatic. Late-night knocks on Alex's door brought angry confrontations, with some neighbors accusing them of holding the community hostage. One man even threatened to tear down the toll booths himself, though he quickly backed off when Alex reminded him that vandalism was illegal. The tension spilled over onto social media, where heated arguments erupted in comment sections. Supporters of Alex posted memes celebrating their defiance, while critics labeled them everything from selfish to unreasonable. The HOA scrambled to respond, caught completely off guard by the backlash. Board members held emergency meetings, debating how to handle the growing crisis. Some suggested offering Alex a lump sum payment to remove the tolls, while others pushed for legal action. But every option came with complications. Paying Alex might set a dangerous precedent, encouraging other homeowners to demand compensation for similar grievances. Suing them risked turning public opinion further against the HOA, especially since many residents already viewed the organization as out of touch and authoritarian. As the days dragged on, the Tollway became a magnet for attention, not all of it negative. Curious onlookers from neighboring towns began driving by just to see the infamous private toll booths for themselves. Some even paid the fee willingly, treating it like an odd roadside attraction. Local businesses noticed an uptick in customers as drivers stopping to figure out the toll situation wandered into nearby shops and restaurants. A coffee truck owner parked near the Tollway reported record sales, joking that Alex's feud with the HOA was the best thing to happen to her business in years. But not everyone saw humor in the situation. Parents complained about delays during school runs, while delivery drivers grumbled about missed deadlines. Even emergency services raised concerns, pointing out that blocked access could pose risks in urgent situations. Alex acknowledged these issues but insisted there were solutions if people were willing to work together. If the HOA had consulted us before building this road, none of this would have happened, they said during another interview. This is on them, not me. Despite the mounting pressure, Alex refused to budge. They hired a part-time assistant to manage the toll booths and handle customer questions, ensuring the operation ran smoothly. Every day, they reviewed receipts and updated spreadsheets, tracking exactly how much money was coming in. To their surprise, the revenue exceeded expectations, enough to cover legal fees, repair damaged land, and still leave a surplus. For the first time in weeks, Alex felt financially secure, knowing they had resources to fight whatever challenges lay ahead. Yet beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to show. While Alex remained resolute, the constant scrutiny took its toll. Friends who once waved hello now avoided eye contact, unsure whether siding with Alex would make them targets too. Anonymous letters appeared in Alex's mailbox, criticizing their actions and warning of consequences. Still, Alex pressed on, convinced that standing up for what was right, even in the face of hostility, was worth the cost. By the end of the month, it was clear the Tollway had become more than just a personal dispute. It was a symbol of resistance, a test of boundaries, and a lesson in unintended consequences for both Alex and the community they lived in. The Tollway didn't just split the neighborhood into two camps. It fractured relationships, sparked heated debates, and forced everyone to take sides. On one hand, there were Alex's supporters who saw the toll as a clever form of justice against an overbearing HOA. To them, Alex was a modern-day David standing up to Goliath, using wit and determination to fight back against unfair treatment. These neighbors proudly paid the toll, some even tossing in extra cash as a show of solidarity. If anyone deserves this money, it's Alex, one supporter said during a community meeting. They've been wronged, and the HOA needs to learn that they can't just bulldoze people. On the other side were the critics, whose frustration grew with each passing day. For these residents, the toll wasn't about fairness. It was an inconvenience, a disruption to their routines, and a symbol of what they saw as Alex's stubbornness. Parents complained about being late to school drop-offs because of detours. Commuters griped about longer drives to work. Even local businesses felt the pinch as regular customers avoided the area altogether rather than deal with the toll or traffic backups. Some neighbors went so far as to boycott Alex entirely, refusing to speak to them or acknowledge their presence at community events. The tension reached a boiling point during a town hall meeting called by the HOA to address the situation. The room buzzed with energy as residents packed inside, eager to voice their opinions. When Alex walked in, whispers rippled through the crowd. Supporters clapped softly, while detractors glared or rolled their eyes. The HOA president, a middle-aged man named Richard, opened the discussion by calling for calm. "This is a complicated issue," he began, his tone measured but strained. "We all need to work together to find a solution." But calm wasn't on the agenda. As soon as Richard finished speaking, hands shot up across the room. One woman stood, visibly upset, and accused Alex of holding the neighborhood hostage. "You're punishing us for something we didn't do," she exclaimed, her voice trembling with anger. Another neighbor chimed in, comparing Alex's tolls to extortion. When it was finally Alex's turn to speak, the room fell silent. Some out of curiosity, others out of hostility. "I didn't ask for any of this," Alex said, their voice steady despite the weight of dozens of stares. "The HOA made this decision without consulting me. They destroyed my property, ignored my protests, and left me no choice but to take matters into my own hands. If you're angry, direct your frustration where it belongs. At the people who built this road without permission." The response was mixed. Some attendees nodded in agreement, while others muttered under their breath. A few tried to suggest compromises, a temporary suspension of the tolls, perhaps, or a promise from the HOA to reimburse Alex for damages. But nothing stuck. Emotions ran too high, and trust had eroded too far. By the time the meeting ended, little progress had been made, leaving both sides more entrenched in their positions than ever. Amid the chaos, surprising alliances began to form. Neighbors who rarely spoke found themselves bonding over shared frustrations or shared admiration for Alex's bold move. One elderly couple, longtime members of the HOA, publicly sided with Alex, criticizing the board for its lack of transparency. Their defection sent shockwaves through the organization, forcing Richard and his team to reconsider their strategy. Meanwhile, younger residents started organizing informal carpool groups to avoid paying the toll multiple times a day, turning inconvenience into an opportunity to connect. For Alex, the tollway had become more than just a means of reclaiming control. It was a mirror reflecting the complexities of human nature. People revealed their true colors under pressure, showing kindness, selfishness, courage, or fear. Despite the division, Alex couldn't help but feel a strange sense of pride. They had ignited a conversation about rights, fairness, and accountability, topics most people preferred to ignore until they were forced to confront them. Still, the tollway remained a powder keg, ready to explode at any moment. With mounting legal threats from the HOA and growing resentment among certain neighbors, Alex knew the fight was far from over. But they also knew one thing for certain. Whether loved or hated, their actions had sparked change. And sometimes, that was worth more than peace. The legal battle between Alex and the HOA escalated quickly, turning into a spectacle that drew even more attention than anyone anticipated. Lawyers filed motions, counter-motions, and affidavits, each side digging in their heels for what promised to be a long and costly fight. For Alex, this was both empowering and exhausting. On one hand, they felt vindicated knowing their case had enough merit to warrant serious legal action. On the other hand, the constant back and forth took its toll emotionally and financially. Every court date meant another day of preparation, another round of questions from reporters camping outside their home, and another wave of judgmental stares from neighbors who couldn't decide whether to cheer or condemn them. During the trial, Alex presented evidence meticulously gathered over months: photos of destroyed trees, copies of old HOA documents highlighting vague easement clauses, and receipts showing how much money the tollway had generated. Their lawyer argued passionately that the HOA's actions constituted a violation of Alex's property rights and that the tolls were a reasonable response to an unreasonable situation. If my client hadn't acted, the lawyer told the judge, the HOA would have continued exploiting private land without consequence. The HOA's defense, meanwhile, focused on portraying Alex as unreasonable and opportunistic. They claimed the tollway disrupted community harmony and violated local ordinances prohibiting private individuals from charging fees for public access. Richard, the HOA president, testified that the road was essential for reducing congestion elsewhere in the neighborhood and accused Alex of prioritizing profit over cooperation. His testimony struck a chord with some residents who still resented the tolls, but left others rolling their eyes at the hypocrisy of an organization accusing someone else of greed. As the courtroom drama unfolded, So did negotiations behind closed doors. Both sides recognized the potential risks of letting a judge rule outright. A loss for either party could set a dangerous precedent. So, quietly and cautiously, talks began about finding middle ground. At first, progress was slow. The HOA offered Alex a lump sum payment to remove the toll booths, but Alex rejected it, arguing the amount wasn't sufficient to cover damages or future legal expenses. When Alex countered with a higher figure, the HOA balked, calling it excessive. Eventually, though, compromise emerged from the chaos. After weeks of tense discussions, a settlement was reached. The HOA agreed to retroactively compensate Alex for the portion of their property used for the road, including funds for environmental restoration. In return, Alex consented to lower the toll rates significantly and transfer management of the toll system to a joint committee comprising HOA representatives and independent mediators. This arrangement ensured the road remained accessible while still acknowledging Alex's right to recoup losses. News of the agreement rippled through the neighborhood, sparking mixed reactions. Supporters celebrated the outcome as a win for property rights, praising Alex for standing their ground and forcing accountability. Critics grumbled that the compromise didn't go far enough, pointing out that the tolls, though reduced, were still inconvenient. Even among HOA board members, opinions were divided. Some admitted privately that the ordeal had exposed flaws in their decision-making process, while others doubled down, insisting they'd done nothing wrong. For Alex, the settlement brought relief, but not closure. While the financial burden eased and the tollway became less contentious, scars remained. Friendships once strained struggled to recover, and lingering resentment lingered in sidelong glances and awkward silences. Yet there was also pride, an unshakable sense that they'd fought for something bigger than themselves. By refusing to back down, Alex had forced the community to confront uncomfortable truths about power dynamics, fairness, and respect. One evening, after dismantling the original toll booths and replacing them with sleeker, jointly managed ones, Alex stood on their porch watching the sunset. The road still cut through their property, a reminder of everything they'd lost. But now, it also symbolized resilience, the kind that comes from knowing you stood up for what was right, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. As cars passed smoothly through the updated toll plaza, Alex allowed themselves a small smile. The battle may have ended, but the lessons learned would stay with them, and the neighborhood, for years to come. Months after the dust settled on the tollway dispute, life in the neighborhood began to find a new rhythm. The road remained, but its story had evolved from one of conflict to cautionary tale, and for some, inspiration. Alex's once controversial stand against the HOA became a legend whispered about at community gatherings and cited in online forums as an example of how far someone could go when pushed too far. While not everyone agreed with Alex's methods, few could deny the impact they'd made. For Alex personally, the experience brought both growth and reflection. They'd started this journey feeling powerless, betrayed by an organization that was supposed to protect their interests. But through sheer determination and creativity, they'd reclaimed control, not just of their property, but of their voice. The tollway had been more than a financial strategy. It was a declaration that individuals have the power to challenge systems, even when those systems seem immovable. Yet, Alex also recognized the cost of their resistance. Friendships tested by the ordeal hadn't fully healed, and some neighbors still avoided them altogether. It was a sobering reminder that standing up for yourself can come at a personal price. The HOA, meanwhile, underwent its own transformation. The tollway fiasco exposed cracks in their leadership that couldn't be ignored. Board meetings became more transparent, with residents demanding greater input before decisions affecting private properties were made. Policies were revised to clarify easement rights, ensuring no homeowner would face a similar situation without proper notice and compensation. Richard, the HOA president, resigned shortly after the settlement, citing personal reasons, though many suspected the backlash had worn him down. His replacement, a younger woman named Lisa, promised a fresh start. emphasizing collaboration over control. Whether these changes would stick remained to be seen, but for now, there was hope. As time passed, the tollway itself faded into the background of daily life. Drivers barely noticed the modest fee deducted electronically as they passed through the automated gates. What had once sparked outrage now felt routine, a quiet acknowledgement of compromise rather than confrontation. Even critics who'd initially railed against Alex softened their stance, admitting the reduced tolls weren't as inconvenient as they'd feared. Some even joked about naming the route Alex's Lane, though whether out of admiration or mockery depended on who you asked. Beyond the neighborhood, Alex's story resonated with others facing similar battles. News outlets revisited the case periodically, framing it as a David versus Goliath triumph. Strangers dealing with encroachments on their land reached out to Alex for advice, seeking guidance on how to navigate disputes with larger entities. Alex welcomed the opportunity to share what they'd learned, often reminding people that every situation is unique, but so is every person's capacity to push back when necessary. On a deeper level, the Tollway saga taught the community valuable lessons about coexistence. Neighbors who'd never spoken before found common ground discussing shared frustrations or shared admiration for Alex's boldness. Others realized how easy it was to take their surroundings for granted until something disrupted the status quo. The road, once a source of division, became a symbol of interconnectedness, proof that even disagreements can lead to understanding if approached with openness. For Alex, the tollway's legacy extended beyond money or legal victories. It was about proving that fairness matters, that standing up for yourself doesn't make you selfish, and that sometimes breaking rules or creating your own is the only way to spark change. As they sat on their porch one evening, watching headlights glide smoothly along the road, Alex allowed themselves a moment of quiet satisfaction. Life wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, and that, they decided, was worth fighting for.